Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
In the annals of scientific thought, certain works stand as monumental achievements, altering the very fabric of our understanding of the universe. Nicolas Léonard Sadi Carnot's Reflections on the Motive Power of Fire, published in 1824, occupies a preeminent position within this select company. This treatise, though initially overlooked, laid the groundwork for the second law of thermodynamics, a concept of fundamental importance. This essay will explore the genesis of Carnot's ideas, delve into the core tenets of his work, analyze its immediate impact, trace its subsequent evolution, examine its reception, and highlight its lasting scientific legacy. The early 19th century presented a landscape ripe for Carnot's insights. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing, driven by the burgeoning power of steam engines. However, the efficiency of these engines was comparatively poor. Engineers largely understood the engine's operation through empirical observation, guided by practical necessity rather than a comprehensive theoretical framework. The prevailing scientific understanding of heat, based largely on the caloric theory which posited heat as a conserved fluid, offered a limited explanation. The central problem was a deficit of understanding on how to maximize a steam engine's efficiency. Carnot sought to address this question. Prior to Carnot's work, several streams of thought converged. The development of steam engines, notably by James Watt, was driven by increasing demands for power. Watt's improvements, such as the separate condenser, enhanced efficiency, yet Watt and his contemporaries lacked theoretical principles that could quantify or predict the ultimate limits of engine performance. The caloric theory of heat was the dominant paradigm. This theory posited that heat was a substance, caloric, that flowed from hotter to colder bodies. This framework, however, struggled to explain phenomena like friction and the generation of heat through work. Count Rumford's experiments on cannon boring challenged the caloric theory, suggesting that heat could be endlessly generated, but his work lacked a clear mathematical formulation and failed to immediately displace the caloric theory's dominance. Carnot's breakthrough was his departure from the prevailing caloric theory and his articulation of a fundamental principle: convertibility of heat into work, and the limitations on that conversion. He conceived his engine as an idealized device operating in a reversible cycle, a concept that would become central to thermodynamics. Carnot's reflections presented a conceptual framework, a model of an ideal heat engine. He proposed a cycle of operations, later known as the Carnot cycle, designed to extract the maximum mechanical work from a given amount of heat. The cycle consists of 4 stages: isothermal expansion, adiabatic expansion, isothermal compression, and adiabatic compression. During isothermal expansion, the working substance, such as steam, expands at a constant temperature, absorbing heat from a hot reservoir and performing work. Following this, the adiabatic expansion continues. Here, expansion occurs without an exchange of heat, causing the temperature of the working substance to decrease. This is followed by isothermal compression, where heat is released to a cold reservoir at a constant temperature. The final stage, adiabatic compression, completes the cycle, bringing the working substance back to its initial state. Carnot demonstrated that the efficiency of such a cycle depends solely on the temperatures of the hot and cold reservoirs, irrespective of the working substance. The beauty of Carnot's argument rested on its abstract nature. He did not focus on the specifics of a particular engine's design or fuel. Instead, he examined the theoretical limits of efficiency within a reversible process. Carnot concluded that for a given temperature difference between the hot and cold reservoirs, the efficiency of a reversible engine is the highest possible. Any real engine, operating through reversible processes, must inevitably have less efficiency. This profound insight introduced the concept of an ideal engine, against which all others could be compared. He also introduced the concept of reversibility, an engine operating without any losses. Although a theoretical construct, it provided a benchmark to measure against real-world engines. The immediate impact of Reflections was initially subdued. The work was published in French, making it inaccessible to some scientists, and its abstract nature stood in contrast to the more practical, empirically focused engineering of the era. At the time, the caloric theory remained dominant, and Carnot's work, with its emphasis on the conversion of heat into work, was difficult for many to reconcile. Furthermore, the precise calculation of the efficiency, which would become critical to later understanding, was presented only conceptually, albeit accurately, without explicit mathematical formulation. However, the core idea of a maximum efficiency dependent only on temperature differences represented a significant advancement. The influence of Carnot's work, however, grew over time. It was Rudolf Clausius and William Thomson Later Lord Kelvin, who recognized the significance of Carnot's ideas and built upon them, Clausius, in 1850, reformulated Carnot's principles using the framework of the principle of the equivalence of heat and work, a concept that had emerged in the intervening decades, and added the notion of entropy, a measure of a system's disorder, to describe the irreversibility of real processes. Clausius' work rigorously demonstrated the relationship between the heat absorbed, the absolute temperature, and the related entropy change. He also introduced the mathematical formulation of the second law of thermodynamics. Simultaneously, William Thomson, from his own investigations into the concept of absolute zero and the efficiency of heat engines, arrived at similar conclusions. Kelvin, using Carnot's principles, developed the absolute thermodynamic temperature scale, independent of the properties of any particular substance. This was a remarkable achievement, one that underscored the generality of Carnot's ideas. Thomson's work provided additional mathematical framing, expressing Carnot's principle and the second law in rigorous mathematical form. The combination of Clausius and Kelvin's insights, rooted in Carnot's original treatise, established the foundations of thermodynamics. These findings eventually displaced the caloric theory. The reception of Carnot's reflections transformed over time. Initially, it was received with muted interest, partly because of its esoteric nature and the prevalence of the caloric theory. Some engineers and scientists, without directly referencing Carnot, continued to focus on practical improvements to steam engines. The work's true significance became apparent through Clausius and Kelvin's work. These scientists not only understood the implications of Carnot's insights, they rigorously formalized them. Carnot's work then gained prominence. The reflections slowly gained broader acceptance as a foundational text in thermodynamics. The book's legacy also includes its influence on the development of statistical mechanics. The concept of entropy, born in Carnot's discussions of irreversibility, became a central measure for understanding the behavior of large systems. Carnot's work was influenced by several intellectual currents. The practical need to improve steam engine efficiency served as a catalyst, but his thinking went beyond simple observation. He was influenced by the work of his father, Lazare Carnot, a prominent military engineer and mathematician. Lazare Carnot's interest in the efficiency of machines and his work on mechanics provided a background for Sadi Carnot's own investigations. Further, Carnot directly referenced some research from his father's work titled Fundamental Principles of Equilibrium and of the Movement of Bodies. Carnot's reliance on the concept of the conservation of momentum and his understanding of energy transfer were essential. Furthermore, some historians suggest that Carnot was aware of the ideas of the French mathematician and physicist Siméon Denis Poisson, who explored the behavior of gases. Although the direct influence on Carnot's work remains some, the reflections directly influenced numerous scientists and engineers. Clausius and Kelvin, as mentioned earlier, were the most prominent in developing and formalizing Carnot's ideas. These scientists transformed Carnot's qualitative insights into a quantitative theory that has impacted various fields. Their work provided a mathematical structure, which became essential to later scientific advancement. The implications of Carnot's principles extended far beyond heat engines. Engineers embraced his conceptual framework as a benchmark to evaluate performance. It was through Carnot's reflections that the limits of efficiency and the interplay between energy, heat, and work became clearly conceptualized. This allowed for the development of more efficient engines. The legacy of Carnot's work is also evident in the development of the field of statistical mechanics. The concept of entropy, as born from Carnot's discussion of irreversibility, became a central measure for characterizing the behavior of systems. Carnot's Reflections is a seminal work. It offered, at its inception, a crucial perspective on the limits of efficiency and the fundamental principles governing the conversion of heat into work. It provided a framework. It was later developed by Clausius and Kelvin. They rigorously formalized the concepts, creating the second law of thermodynamics. This law underpins our understanding of energy, entropy, and the direction of natural processes. The legacy of this treatise endures in its influence on engineering, physics, and our understanding of the universe. It stands as a testament to the power of theoretical insight, its ability to shape our perception of the world, and its impact on subsequent scientific advancement. The book remains a foundational text in the study of thermodynamics.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.